So this is a session called The Two Pictures. And I would like to start with a prayer, as we always do. So if you could take a moment and close your eyes, take a deep breath. Thank you, Great Spirit, for bringing us together. We recognize that everyone here is guided by Spirit to come. There are no accidents. Everyone here is here for a purpose. So we recognize that there is teaching and learning and healing here for everyone, whether you're joining live or watching the recording. So we now ask clarity and vision, deep intention, and purity of purpose for all of us. And we ask that the principles of A Course in Miracles be illuminated for everyone, such that any questions you have, any issues you're struggling with, any fear or pain that is distracting you, we ask that this all be lightened. We ask that the hand of God, the Holy Spirit, touch each person who is joining us. And we know that because this is God's will, it is already done. We can proceed and enjoy ourselves. And if you care to say out loud with me, please, and so it is. And so it is. Thank you. Before we dive into today's material, I want to have a little carryover from the last meeting we had, which was on special relationships and holy relationships, and you'll see how this will segue into our material for today. We had said that special relationships are those in which we feel empty and needy and broken, and we seek outside of ourselves to import a person or a thing or an object that will give us what we are not. However, we are already the thing we seek, and the thing we believe the other person will bring us already belongs to us. We define ourselves as whole and holy and empowered right now. A holy relationship, by contrast, is one in which we proceed from overflow. We recognize ourselves as whole, and we deny the idea that somebody else is going to fix us or save us, which is why we get into trouble in any relationship. So there are a couple of stories I wanted to tell last time, but we ran out of time, and I think I'd like to tell them now as a segue into our current material. And these are illustrations of a holy relationship. One of my coach graduates was married and had 2 children, and he decided to identify with his gay self, and he left his marriage for a man. And of course, it wasn't easy for anybody, but they moved through the process. And as it turned out, he maintained his relationship with his wife and children in a very loving, supportive way. He took good care of them. And the wife and children appreciated the fact. And the wife became the friend of the husband's new partner. And when the partner was sick, she went over and she made him smoothies to help him. So I love that story because it's a complete reversal of the way that most people would handle a divorce. Most wives or husbands who were left behind would feel irritated and angry and retaliate. But in this case, the man and his wife had transformed their relationship from a special one to a holy one. So I'm not encouraging anybody to go out and leave your marriage or make believe that difficulties don't arise when that happens. But I am saying that it really is possible to transform any special relationship into a holy one. In fact, the Course in Miracles says that ultimately, every special relationship will become holy. Isn't that encouraging? It also says, one of the lessons in the workbook is, a happy ending to all things is sure. I love that lesson. A happy ending to all things is sure. So if you want to take a moment to think about anything you're struggling with, a health issue, a financial issue, a career issue, a marital issue, a family issue. So whatever's going on, Great Spirit promises us through A Course in Miracles, and just because that's the way it is, that a happy ending to this situation is assured somehow, in some way, at some time. It will turn out and bless everyone. So that's encouraging, isn't it? The other story I want to tell you is kind of similar. It's even more intense, actually. One of my coach graduates told me this story, that she's married and has a couple kids. And at one point, her husband had an affair. And the affair produced a child. And while the girlfriend was pregnant, the husband explained the situation to the wife, and he realized that it was a big mistake, and he apologized, and he sincerely stated that he wished to resume the marriage and start over and really be dedicated to his wife. And the wife accepted this. Well, when the baby came, the husband and wife recognized that the mother was not a fit mother. She was emotionally unstable. And if she was to raise the child, it would be a horror show for the child. So this wife and her husband consciously chose to take in that baby, which was the baby of the husband, not the wife, but they chose to adopt it, and they raised the child. Now, once again, it's a perfect scenario for the special relationship to rear its head and say, hey, you screwed up and it's your problem and get out of here and I don't want any part of it. But in this particular situation, the wife was very compassionate and she decided that it was more important to help this child than to be angry at her husband or to retaliate. So, those are both kind of intense situations, but it shows you that there are always options to being upset. And one of my favorite early course lessons is, I could see peace instead of this. I could see peace instead of this. And one more lighter example I like to give, because I always like to honor my partner, Dee. Dee is a very kind and caring person. She likes to take care of people. And I remember once we were out one day and we were coming home and a tree had fallen across the highway and it was blocking traffic, and traffic was blocked up for quite a while the crew was cleaning up the tree. And it was a hot summer day and people were really bugged, and there were a couple police officers trying to control the traffic, and it was a gnarly scene. And when we finally got up to where the police officer was, they were metering people through slowly, Dee said to the officer, thank you for guiding traffic. She said, can we get you a sandwich? Can we get you a glass of water, a drink or something? And the policeman said, no, thank you. It's very nice of you. But to me, it demonstrated that, in a situation that could be tacky or touchy, where people are upset, there's always one person, there's always one way to look at it, where it's an opportunity to help and heal. And remember that the Course said, we've said this many times, the Course says that every situation is a choice between love and fear. We cannot say this too much. And it also says that every situation is either a pure expression of love or a call for love. So when there's an upset or somebody's acting crazy or sick or weird, then we need to quickly reinterpret that as a call for love. Somebody came to you and they were bleeding and they'd been injured or shot or something, and you would do what you can to take them to the hospital or bandage the wound or whatever you could. And the Course says when somebody comes to you as angry or hostile or attacking you, think of them as, I'm paraphrasing, think of them as somebody who's been wounded. And if you can rise above your desire to retaliate, then you see that you would treat them as somebody who's been shot, basically. And, we've said hurt people hurt people. So somebody who hurts you is already hurt. So that's my little carryover from last month. So let's dive into this section, which is quite the same, you'll see, but we want to go deeper. So let me put on my program here. Okay, so Vincent van Gogh, as we well know, is one of the great artists of all time. And when he was painting, he was not very well known at all. In fact, he was not accepted as an artist, a great artist at all. And he had lots of paintings, and they were in these little wooden frames. And believe it or not, people were buying up his paintings, not for the paintings, but for the frames. And they would use the wooden frames for firewood. Can you believe that? So, of course, later on he was recognized, and he painted this wonderful painting, Starry Night, you know it all, and many other paintings. And today he's the most financially successful painter in the world. I think recently one of his paintings was sold for $149 million, and I believe all of his paintings altogether are worth over $700 million. So I use this as an example to illustrate the juxtaposition between a picture and a frame, and what is more valuable. Now, in some cases, you get a crummy picture and the frame is really valuable, but in other cases, you got a fabulous picture and the frame is not valuable. So this whole section, which comes from A Course in Miracles, is about what are you paying attention to, the picture or the frame. Now, the Course has a really intense section. It's one of the most graphic sections in the Course. And it talks about a picture and a frame. It's in the text. It's called the two pictures. I'm going to read it. It's a little bit long, but you can read along with me, and you get it. It says the special relationship has the most imposing and deceptive frame of all the defenses the ego uses. Its thought system is offered here, surrounded by a frame so heavy and so elaborate that the picture is almost obliterated by its imposing structure. So let me just translate a little bit and then we'll go into it. So Course tells us that special relationships, especially romantic relationships, are built largely on fantasy. That you have this huge idea, this huge Cinderella, Prince Charming will sweep me away kind of thing. I'll meet Miss April, and we have all these big ideas about what this person is that have very little to do with who the person really is. We make up huge stories about the person, and then when they don't live up to them, we get angry at them. But it's not their fault. We made up a story about them, and we were seduced by our fantasy of who they would be or might be one day if they just changed enough. And so the Course says you are completely distracted by this big gaudy frame, but you're not looking at the picture. You're not looking at who the person really is. And the Course wants us to shift our focus from the frame to the picture. Now it goes on to say, into the frame are woven all sorts of fanciful and fragmented illusions of love. That should be underscored. Set with dreams of sacrifice, which means if I just sacrifice myself enough, then I'll have a loving relationship. Or if this other person would just sacrifice him or herself enough for me, then we'll be cruising. But sacrifice never gets you where you want to be. A Course in Miracles says the only real sacrifice we ever are required to make is fear. It says every other sacrifice you can imagine is meaningless and useless. It says if you're going to sacrifice something, sacrifice fear. However, most special relationships are based on fear because we believe I'm not enough, I'm afraid I'm not enough, so let me find this person who will make me whole, which never worked, it never has, it never will. Set with dreams of sacrifice and self-aggrandizement and interlaced with gilded threads of self-destruction. Now the Course just zings us right between the eyes. There's nothing pretty about this picture. And the Course wants us to realize that the prettiness that we've superimposed over real beauty is not going to get us where we want to go. And finally, it kind of gets the last zinger. It says, the glitter of blood shines like rubies. Oh, and the tears, it's kind of sad actually, but it's funny and sad. And the tears are faceted like diamonds and gleam in the dim light in which the offering is made, which means that we romanticize the tears we're going to cry in the relationship. Oh, I cried so many tears over her. Well, it's not romantic at all. It sucks. It's painful. So finally it says, look at the picture. Do not let the frame distract you. The frame is not the gift. Now let's just step back for a moment here. So the Course in Miracles says that for the most part, the frame that we get distracted by is the body. Now, this is not just a physical body, but it could be somebody's world that is their body. So now you're attracted to somebody's physical body and you go for that rather than who they are. Or somebody has money. So money is a form of body too, because it's their wealth world. It's the body of their corporation, of their wealth. You're attracted to that. Or they have a nice house, or they have a good job. Or you think, we make up all these stories about who they are that is not who they are. And as I said in many of my books, if we could see each other clearly, we would not see bodies, we would see the divine light shining as God created it. So if you're seeing anything other than a child of God, you've been distracted by some form of body, not just the physical body, but some other form of body. Now, the Course in Miracles says you will always suffer if you are distracted by the frame. I want to refer you to a wonderful movie called Bedazzled, B-E-D-A-Z-Z-L-E-D, the year 2000 version, starring Brendan Fraser and Elizabeth Hurley. And in this movie, Brendan Fraser plays a nerd named Elliot, who has an industrial strength crush on this lovely woman named Allison, but she's way out of his league, and there's no way he's going to get her as a girlfriend. So Elizabeth Hurley shows up as the devil, who promises Elliot that she can get Allison for him in exchange for his soul. And so Elliot has 7 wishes. And if he can get the girl in one of those 7 wishes, he wins. But if he doesn't, he loses and he goes to hell forever. And so Elliot goes about attempting to dictate the form by which he will get the girl. And so in one scenario, he's a very handsome and wealthy drug lord, but meanwhile, she's having an affair with somebody else. In another instance, he's a very sensitive, spiritual, new age guy who cries at the sunset, but she wants a tough guy, so she leaves him for somebody else who's more manly. In another scenario, she's attracted to him, but he's gay. So you can see in every scenario, he tries to set up the form of the situation, which is the frame, without dictating the essence, which is pure Course in Miracles. He was looking for how it looked instead of how it felt. He was looking for the venue to get there instead of the result. If he would have just said, I would love to have a wonderful partnership with somebody I love and who loves me, a healthy, wonderful, heartwarming, divine, grounded relationship that makes me happy, he would have won instantly. But his mistake was dictating the form instead of the picture. He was dictating the frame instead of the picture, I should say. And so ultimately, he loses out on all of his wishes, and Elizabeth Hurley gets him thrown in jail as a devil. And he meets a guy in jail who says, what are you here for, brother? And he says, I'm here for eternity. The guy says, oh man, that's bad. What happened? He says, well, I sold my soul to the devil. And the guy says, you know what, man? He says, you can't sell your soul to the devil because your soul belongs to God. Your soul is the only thing about you the devil can't get to. And so she can seduce you and distract you and hypnotize you and threaten you. But ultimately, no devil can take your soul because your soul is eternal. Your soul belongs to God, and God doesn't give any souls away. And of course, this guy in jail with him is not just another man, but he's an angel who has come to redeem Elliot and let him know that he can lose touch with his soul, but he can't lose his soul. And his main error was to be distracted by the frame instead of remembering the picture that his heart really longed for. And so the Course tells us that the holy instant, let's go back one moment here. So here's the big old gaudy frame that doesn't have much room for the picture, distracted by the frame. But the Course tells us that the holy instant is a picture too set in a frame. If you accept the gift, you will not see the frame at all, because the gift can only be accepted through your willingness to focus all your attention on the picture. So by contrast, when the body or the stuff of the world is a very light frame, everything that's beautiful can come through because you're not distracted by the frame. You can be distracted, not distracted, but be invested in the picture. Now, I'll give you a funny little example here. So many of you know that I'm a Hay House author. I love Louise Hay and Hay House. So many years ago, Louise took me for a ride in her gold Rolls Royce. It was a pretty cool car. And I thought it was impressive, but, you know, it was stuff, right? And I thought, well, why is Louise into a gold Rolls Royce? She's a really great spiritual teacher. And she deserved it. She's helped a lot of people. So then a couple years later, I heard that she traded in her Rolls Royce for a smart car. So she got tired of the frame and she wanted the picture. You know, the gold Rolls Royce is all about the car. It's not about the driver. And a smart car, it's a good name for it. Not that you need a smart car. You can have a nice car if you like. But there's beautiful Louise, not overshadowed by the gold Rolls Royce. So she went through her own evolution as well. So now let's turn for a minute to the story of Buddha. You all know about Buddha. So Buddha started out as royalty. He was a prince. And one day he ventured outside the castle and he discovered that where there was sickness and old age and death in the world, and he had never seen these things inside the castle, which was all about the form. It was all about the frame. Look how cool the castle is. And his parents never showed him what was going on outside the castle, the palace walls. Well, he went outside and he found there were people hurting. So he asked the question that all of us ultimately ask: why is there suffering and how can we end it? And after a childhood and youth of tremendous opulence, he decided to go the other way, and he began to mortify his flesh. And so he didn't eat, and he slept on nails, and he didn't hardly wear clothing, and he was starving, and he was very frail, and he could not find enlightenment by mortifying his flesh, by hurting himself, by beating himself. And that wasn't working either. And so this woman came by and took pity on him and offered him a bowl of porridge. And he accepted it. And we're told that in that moment, he became the Buddha because he discovered the middle path. And my point here is that if you try to mortify your body and make your body the enemy, you're making your body just as much a god as if you indulge your body. You know, fixing your body endlessly and being so preoccupied with the body is one thing, but hurting your body or denying your body is an equal form of preoccupation with the body. And so hurting yourself is just as much an error and illusion as overindulging yourself. So Buddha came up with what he called the middle path. And he suggested that moderation is far healthier than going to one extreme or another. So the Course in Miracles does not want us to deny our body. It wants us to take good care of our body, but not make our body into a god. So enjoy your body, have fun with it, but let it be the frame, not the picture. What is the picture? It's the light of God that shines through you. It's the essence of God that you are. It's the love that you express in the world using your body as a communication device. And the Course tells us many times that the entire purpose of the body is to communicate love. It says that your body is like a car, and the car is useful to get from one place to another. But you know, some people, their car becomes their whole life, and they spend all the savings on the car, and they spend time waxing it and showing people. And I think I might have mentioned once, when Dee and I lived in Fiji, I'll tell you this again in case I did before, but it's a good story, that you know, it's a very poor country. And one guy who lived by the highway was a very wealthy guy, and he bought himself an RX, no, not RX, I forget, it was a real fancy sports car. It was like a high-end sports car. It would be $100,000 here. And he positioned this car by the side of the road, and he built a pavilion over it, and he shined lights on it, colored lights on it from all angles. And the whole purpose of the car was for people to see that he owned this car. And, you know, everybody was resentful of him. Nobody respected him because they didn't have a car, and he did. And I don't think I ever saw that car go anywhere. I'm sure it worked, but the whole thing was, this is my car. Let me show you the body of the car. That's all that counts. But the Course says that our body is not necessarily for show, but it's a communication device. So it says the only purpose for the body is to channel the love of God into the world and use it to perform miracles. And one of my favorite lessons toward the end of the workbook is that my eyes, my hands, my tongue, my feet have but one purpose: to be given Christ, to bless the world with miracles. So in that one lesson, the Course sums up the purpose of the body. It's a miracle worker. It's a vehicle through which God comes to the world. I'll tell you one more story. It wasn't on my list of points, but I want to make it though. It's a good one. I found this YouTube of an early Beatles concert in Australia. And it was really good. It was 1964, and they were at the height of their glory, and all the girls were screaming, but they were performing really well, and they were just in their essence. And I was reading down the comments on YouTube, and one fellow or woman, I don't know who it was, made a wonderful comment. That person said, "I'm a solid atheist, but when I feel the talent that those musicians brought to earth, and the joy and delight and inspiration that they infused into the world, I believe there could be a God." And he said, the sun, the earth, and the Beatles. And I love that comment, because what it was saying was that The Beatles, talented as they were given their talent by God. And in their own unique way, they were bringing a new era to Earth with the music and then with the consciousness that they inculcated. So they were using their talents to bring God to the world. Now, the point is not to idolize the Beatles. The point is to honor you for the talents you have. You may not be a musician, maybe you're a writer or a mother or a van driver or an Uber driver or a Reiki master or a massage therapist. Doesn't matter. There's some talent that God has given you that will deliver great spirit to the world and heal people through your presence. And the Course also talks in text about your special function. It says, if you want to be special, recognize that God has given you special gifts. And you must be true to your passion. The way that God gets you to give your gifts is God makes you passionate about something. When you're passionate about something, whatever it is, it means that God is seeking to reach the world through you to deliver something unique that is God coming through you as you to bless the world. That is your true specialness. That's the highest use of specialness. Okay, let's see what else we have here. So Course says that miracles reawaken the awareness that the spirit, not the body, is the altar of truth. And this is the recognition that leads to the healing power of the miracle. So basically what it's saying is that you and I are spiritual beings, and when we are aligned with our spirit, everything wonderful happens. When you get misaligned with your spirit, it doesn't work so well. Now, I knew a minister years ago. She had a Unity church. And when she stepped into the ministry, she went over the bylaws of the church, the constitution of the church. And she told me that there were 40 pages, mostly fear-based. How do we protect ourselves against this? And how do we not get sued about this? And how do we keep these kind of people under control? On and on and on. She said, wait a minute, if I'm going to be this minister of this church, I will not have a constitution that is fear-based. And so she went through the whole bylaws with a couple people, and they said, we're going to slice out everything that is fear-based, and we're going to leave everything that is love-based. And they reduced their constitution from 40 pages to 7. And so the church blossomed after that because it was a love-based church, not a fear-based church. Now, Dee and I have our own board of directors. Right there, those guys, or guys like them, are the ones that they're love-based. And so they don't have a very long constitution. It's basically love, 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 play, 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 be, be, be. And so whenever we want to remember what our constitution is, we play with our doggies. That's our board of directors, because they're not hung up on their bodies. They're into the body stuff, but they're into love more than anything else. So let us conclude, and then we'll take Q&A. By the way, you can chat Q&A to ACP office. Look on the list of participants, and it's the ACP office, and Nishank is standing by, and we'll take questions in just a couple of minutes. So I want to close this portion with this quote. It says, "Who hangs an empty frame upon a wall and stands before it deep in reverence, as if a masterpiece were there to see?" Interesting image, isn't it? Yet, if you see your brother as a body only, it is this that you but do. You're totally distracted by his body instead of his essence or his spirit. The masterpiece that God has set within this frame is all there is to see. So you are the masterpiece. Now, this is good news if you don't like your body, because you're not your body anyway. So if you're overweight or getting older, you got wrinkles or whatever, so what? It's not who you are. Look deeper. There's a masterpiece. Everybody, please shut off your video. Thank you very much. Deshant, please shut off folks' videos. Yet, what God has created needs no frame. So what this is saying is that you would be fully intact even without a frame, even without a body. Dee and I saw a movie the other night about this guy who was visiting his very elderly mother in a nursing home, and she was nothing more than skin and bones, and her mind was gone. She was just a frame. He said, a poor old soul, poor soul. And there was nothing to her. It was just a body. And then later on in the movie, it was revealed that the mother had passed. And we said, oh, good for her, because she went home to God. And so we get so hung up on holding onto the body, but you know, we all want to do it, of course, but ultimately it's the spirit that we are. And when she was released from that body, glory, hallelujah. I think I said last time that my teacher said, when somebody's born into the world, the angels cry and people rejoice. And when somebody leaves this world, people cry and the angels rejoice. And finally, the Course says, his masterpiece, he offers you to see. And the truth is that, you know, when you remember who you are in the big scheme of things, you're a little body in a big universe. And that's the picture we want to look at. We want to look at the big picture of what God created as his gift to us, nature, our loved ones, our arts, our spiritual studies, our insights, our prayers, the answers to our prayers, our miracles. We're moving from the frame to the picture. The frame becomes very light, and the picture becomes very obvious. Okay, well, we're right on time. So let's go to Q&A. I like the Q&A because it gives us a chance to really apply what we've been talking about. So Nishank, are you there?
Hey, Alan, pretty much here.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so let's see what we can do in the time allotted and really see if we can apply these lessons to our beloved participants.
Sure. So there's a question that's a spillover from last time.
Okay.
And it says, my wife wanted to leave me for a younger co-worker, but because of being married, they did not take that step. We are together now, but she's still on the fence and she likes me, but not with those feelings. And I don't want to leave because I love my family and I love her. However, I don't want her to stay if she's happy elsewhere. So as a miracle worker, what is the best that I can do in this situation?
Well, I was very touched by your statement. I don't want her to stay if she would be happy elsewhere. That's a very beautiful thing, because that's the essence of a holy relationship. Now, I'm not suggesting she should stay or she should not, or you should leave or you should not. But what you've done, my friend, in that very sincere statement is you have lifted your consciousness to a space of love rather than fear. So I want to suggest to you that your practice is to stay in that high consciousness as much as possible and do what you can to keep coming from love. Seek to support your wife to be happy and seek to support yourself to be happy. And what I would do in a situation like this is I would turn it over to Spirit. And remember, we're told in the Course in Miracles, whenever you're troubled or questioned about something, turn it over which means you don't think, I have to figure this out, and what am I going to do, and how's it going to work out? You say, Great Spirit, Holy Spirit, I now place this marriage on your altar. And I ask that what is the rightest of intentions for everybody manifest. And if it's right for us to stay together, then I open my heart now, and I ask you open my wife's heart to let that be revealed to both of us for both of our highest good. If for some reason it would be in both of our best interests for her to part, even for reasons neither of us understand, then I am open to and willing to have that happen. And I trust that if we go in our separate directions, we will both be in our right place for our mutual good, and God will bless both of us. So in this situation, my friends, it's less about dictating the form. It's a really good question, because a marriage is a form of a body. Two people living together under one roof, doing the same thing, sharing finances, sharing logistics. So that's the form of a body. And some people say, you must keep that body together no matter what, even if people are suffering. But sometimes people go the different directions. It's not, it's not out of God's plan. And sometimes they go deeper. Now, I also know couples who have used a situation like this to express more, to communicate more, to love more, to forgive more. And in the process of each of them doing their homework, they come deeper together. And many people say that the affair or the desired affair was actually the thing that pushed us together, and now we have a better marriage than ever. So once again, I'm not attempting to dictate form, yes or no, here or there, but I am attempting to say that when you stay in the high consciousness of creating a holy relationship, then God steps in and takes care of the details and does all kinds of things for both of you that you would never have thought of if you tried to engineer it from a special place and come from fear and neurosis rather than love and confidence. I hope that works for you. It's really how it works.
Thank you, Alan. There is a lovely question, very applicable in today's corporate world. And Natasha is a coach, and she's starting to do a lot of work with organizations who are going through mergers, acquisitions, and restructuring. How could I leverage my coaching gifts to offer healing in these organizations? Specifically curious about advice to convey this message of not missing the picture, which is the opportunity for more love, joy during the change, for the frame, which is hurt feelings, guilt, despair.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you already understand the principle, because you have identified the picture as joining a connection, and you have identified the frame as hardship and competition. So it sounds to me, Natasha, that you're already well into the understanding of it. Now you just have to practice it. By the way, I just published a book on this called Spirit Means Business. You might want to pick that up because it talks about the true business has a spiritual foundation. So I would, there's a healer's prayer that we say, and it's on the beginning of the text, and it says, I'm here only to be truly helpful. I'm here to represent him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do, because he who sent me will direct me. I'm content to be wherever he wishes, knowing he goes there with me, even into a corporate meeting, and I will be healed as I allow him to teach me to heal. So I would suggest very sincerely to you, Natasha, that before you enter a corporate meeting or a negotiation or a planning session, that you drop into the healer's prayer and make it your intention to create healing no matter what else is going on in the room. You could have 12 people in the room who are upset, but if you're holding a space of healing and connection and right livelihood and right purpose, then you're going to be the guiding, driving force in that meeting, and your input will be more powerful than 12 other people who might be upset. So the last chapter of Spirit Means Business, my book, says that the rules of business are not an exception to universal principles. That what works in life works in business. You cannot slice business as well. We have different rules here. So it sounds to me that you're on a spiritual path, Natasha. It sounds to me that you're already into the course. So make it a great adventure, a great exercise to see how much of the course you can bring into the workplace. You don't have to spout the course or talk about lessons or anything, but you just have to live it. And if you make it your intention before every meeting to say, my only goal here is inner peace, and my only goal is to help other people find their inner peace, you're going to be you're going to be very successful in the corporate world, and it's going to work because God is everywhere, including in corporations. Okay.
Thank you, Alan. These principles apply everywhere without exception,
Everywhere.
right?
No exception. No exception. You can't say that holy relationships work everywhere except in my marriage. You can't say that. You can't say, Jesus, you know my situation, never say love. You see, because, in fact, in the worst moment of marriage, that's the best moment to apply a spiritual principle. Your marriage or your relationship is not an exception to truth. It's the altar upon which truth is worshipped.
Thank you, Alan. Another question with regards to today's chapter is picture and the frame another way of saying actions speak louder than words? I have a tendency to see the potential in the other, but ignore who they are being in that moment.
Well, that's a good question, isn't it? The Course urges us not to see error and not to see bodies. Now, that sounds pretty radical, but that's what the Course says. So, no matter what somebody is doing, you might have to remember their essence. So even if somebody is acting badly or rudely or attacking you, the true Course student would raise your vision to remember who they are behind their offensive action. Now that takes a lot of work because it's very easy to get distracted. Now the caveat to that is that if somebody is acting in an abusive way, you're not required to put up with it, because you're not helping them by letting them abuse you. So you do have to have discernment and say, yes, I can go along with this. No, I can't go along with that. So on an earthly level, you have to be discerning. But all the while, remember that who they are is far bigger than their earthly actions. Actions speak louder than words, but spirit speaks louder than actions. So you want to up-level your vision to see the picture of their spirit rather than the frame of their actions. Unless, of course, their actions are channeling spirit, in which you want to honor the frame because it has become an expression of spirit.
Thank you, Alan. And we have one more question. Speaking about being passionate, sometimes I'm not sure if I'm passionate about anything. And when I feel that, I feel I'm not aligned. So is there a way that something can be worked towards?
Yeah, sure. It's impossible that you're not passionate about anything, because you wouldn't be alive. Because life itself is an expression of passion. If your lungs are breathing and your heart is beating, that is God's passion expressing into life. God is passionate about you being in life. That's why you're still alive. So if you're still here, you have a purpose. And if you have a purpose, it's connected to passion. So we don't have the opportunity to dialogue now. But if we did, I would ask you, what brings you even a little glimmer of happiness? Well, walking my dogs. Well, I like to play my guitar. Well, I like to be in nature. Well, I like to go out to eat at a certain restaurant. So I would suggest that, wow, there are 4 expressions of passion. See, now people get mixed up because they think, well, unless I know what my passion is, a world savior, or what my ultimate career is, what my ministry is, who is my church, who are my followers, I don't have passion. But the truth is that when you start to get connected to your passion in little moments, like, wow, that was a beautiful sunset, or wow, when that person said a kind thing to me, something resonated, then those are all expressions of passion. Any moment you feel even the slightest joy or the slightest peace or the slightest excitement about anything, that is passion. So I would invite you to make a list of the things that, if you had an evening or a day or a weekend to do only the things that you chose to do, nothing out of obligation, nothing out of guilt, how would you spend your evening or day or weekend? And in your answer is where your passion lives. And if you were my coaching client, I would not take no passion for an answer. I would just never settle for that. I would wrestle you to the ground until you discovered and admitted what your little passion is. And when you discover your little passions, you build like a pipeline to where your passion lives. And from that pipeline, your passion grows, because when you focus on something that's passionate, even a little thing, it grows into something that's passionate, even a big thing. Is that the last question, Ashok?
One more, Alan. Do we have time?
Sure.
This is an interesting one. My boyfriend of 3 years cheated on me and was out of integrity. And after that, him and I had a breakdown and led towards a breakthrough. I'm a student of the course and he is not. So this is something even I get to hear a lot. And I made a decision to forgive him, but I'm realizing it is really, really hard to forgive. But from time to time, my thoughts rise up and make me feel like a doormat. Why should I forgive him? Is there another way?
Yeah, the Course calls us to up-level our definition of forgiveness. And most people think that forgiveness means you did something horrible and you really hurt me, and now I will be big enough to not retaliate. But what the Course says is that when you can recognize that your boyfriend has no power over your happiness, that you are whole and lovable and desirable and perfect and attractive and everything that's good, then what he does is not a factor in your happiness. Now, I'm not suggesting you should stay in a relationship where somebody is cheating. That's not my goal here. But I'm suggesting that true forgiveness means you take your power back and you say, I claim my wholeness no matter what you do. Now, the interesting thing about this kind of question is that when you rise and you take the high road and you choose love, you become a match to a loving partner. So if your partner is capable to rise and meet you in a state of true love, which is honoring you, he might do that. If he is not capable of meeting you in a space of love, he will go off and you won't miss him anyway because he wasn't loving, and you might attract somebody else who's able to meet you on the high road of choosing love. You understand? So really, this is less about what's going on between you and your boyfriend and more about what's going on between you and yourself. The more you keep choosing loving and self-honoring, you'll know what to do. You might say, well, I'm not going to be with somebody who cheats on me. Fine, that's a valid decision. Or, as in a previous discussion, you might just work with them until you come out on the other side and you have a more committed relationship. So nobody has to be a doormat, but you do have to be a divine being. And as you recognize the fact that you are a divine being and your boyfriend is a divine being and the person you cheated with is a divine being behind the human drama, you start to see things at a whole different perspective, a much bigger picture, and answers reveal themselves that do not reveal themselves when you regard him as a villain and you as a victim. It's a good question. It takes practice, but you can get there. I think that's enough for today, Nishank. Thank you, Nishank, from Mumbai, for fielding the question. It's always an honor to have you help out.
Love doing this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. As always, we're going to end with a moment of prayer and meditation. And I do want to remind you guys that our 5-day retreat in Hawaii is coming up December 1 to 6. I'll be doing a retreat called A Course in Miracles, The Easy Path with my beloved friend, Karen Drucker. It'll be a 5-day immersion miracles retreat with some wonderful people at one of the most beautiful spots on the planet. If you would like to play with me and Karen and some really wonderful Course in Miracles students for 5 days, go to my website, alancohen.com, and click on the icon. We have 1.5 rooms left. So if you want to come, jump in quickly, because we like to service you and make sure you get your share of miracles in December. Okay, so let's go to our prayer moment for closing. If you would, close your eyes, take a deep breath. We drop into our hearts and we become grateful for the amazing gifts of spirit that we have been given. The fact that you and I are expressions of God, and the people in your life are expressions of God. And the miracles that have opened up for us is nothing less than a miracle. And so we deeply give gratitude for our time together, for A Course in Miracles, the gifts of A Course in Miracles, all the blessings that have come to us in our life, all the blessings that are showered upon us at this minute, and all the blessings that will continue to unfold ad infinitum. Thank you, God, for life. Thank you, God, for love. Thank you even for our challenges that move us to discover love where we thought it was not. We send blessings to everyone who is participating in this live or to the recording. We recognize that the love of God is in you and around you. We know that you are blessed beyond understanding. And we ask and know that all the miracles your heart desires are now flowing to you. And we say yes. We accept them with an open heart, with a whole heart. And we see you becoming new. We see you shifting from the frame to the picture and living in the magnificent portrait that God has created. And so it is. Thank you so much. We'll see you next month. Love you lots.